make it fast. It hurts down there.
I'll make it quick.
Make it stop. It itches down there. The giant mail order. Bride begged, but what the lonely rancher did slowly made her fall in love with every touch. Make it stop. It itches down there, the giant mail order bride begged, her hands desperately gripping the lonely rancher's vest as she towered over him in the golden afternoon light. Lydia Morrison, standing 6'4" in her cream wedding dress, looked down at Ethan Cole with tears streaming down her face. This man she'd just met was 9 inches shorter, but he was her only hope. 3 days of brutal travel had left her skin burning, itching relentlessly in places she couldn't reach, places too intimate to speak of. But what the lonely rancher did next shocked her. His calloused hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer instead of pushing her away. "I'll make it stop," he whispered, his touch gentle as he guided her trembling frame toward him. She gasped, her fingers tightening on his vest as his hands began to move slowly, carefully, promising relief in ways that made her heart race. Every touch sent shivers through her towering body, not from pain, but from something she'd never felt before. The giant mail order bride was falling, and she couldn't make it stop. But what exactly was the lonely rancher doing slowly that turned her desperate begging into breathless surrender? And why did every touch make her fall deeper in love when they were still strangers? The stagecoach had arrived 30 minutes earlier, dust still hanging in the Montana air like a copper veil. Lydia had stepped down from that coach expecting rejection. She always did. At 6'4", she'd learned that men didn't want women who towered over them. Men wanted delicate flowers they could protect, women who made them feel strong and capable. Not her. Never her. But Ethan Cole hadn't stepped back when she'd emerged. He hadn't laughed or frowned or made excuses. He'd simply removed his hat, looked up at her with hazel eyes that held more sadness than judgment, and said, "Welcome home, Lydia." Those 2 words had cracked something inside her chest. Home. As if she belonged anywhere. As if someone actually wanted her there. But now, standing in his ranch house with sunlight pouring through the windows, she couldn't pretend anymore. The pain had become unbearable. 3 days on that stagecoach, the wool undergarments they'd forced her to wear, rubbing against her skin with every bump and jolt of the wheels. Her lower back felt like it was on fire. Behind her knees, raw and burning. And her inner thighs. She couldn't even think about it without wincing. She'd tried to hide it, tried to be strong, tried to be the capable mail-order bride who didn't complain. But when Ethan had asked if she was all right, when he'd noticed her shifting her weight and unconsciously scratching, the dam had broken. "I can't reach it," she whispered now, shame coloring her cheeks crimson. "The corset, the dress, I can't." Her voice broke. Here she was, a stranger in this man's home, about to ask him to touch her in ways that were completely improper. They weren't even married yet. The circuit preacher wouldn't arrive until Sunday. But the burning, the itching, it was driving her mad. Ethan's hands remained steady on her waist, his touch firm but gentle. "Look at me," he said quietly. Lydia forced herself to meet his eyes, bending down slightly so she could see his face clearly. What she saw there surprised her. No disgust, no impatience, just genuine concern, and something else, something that looked almost like tenderness. "You're in pain," he continued. "Real pain, and I have something that can help. My late wife Sarah used to make a salve, calendula and chamomile. It works wonders on skin irritation. But you're going to need help applying it, aren't you?" The mention of his late wife sent a pang through Lydia's chest. She'd been told in the letters that Ethan was a widower, that he'd lost his wife 3 years ago. But hearing him speak of her now, hearing the grief still present in his voice, reminded Lydia that this man knew loss. He knew what it meant to care for someone. "I don't know you," she breathed. "You're a stranger. It's improper." "It is," Ethan agreed. "But so is letting you suffer when I can help." His thumbs moved in small circles on her waist, a gesture so unconsciously soothing that Lydia felt some of her tension ease. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go into that bedroom and change out of these travel clothes. There's a loose cotton nightdress in the chest. It was Sarah's, but she'd want you to have it. Get out of that corset and those wool things that are torturing you. Then you're going to come back out here. Tell me where it hurts worst, and I'm going to apply the salve. Nothing more, nothing less. Can you trust me enough for that?" Trust. Such a loaded word. Lydia had learned not to trust easily. Life had taught her that people's kindness usually came with conditions, with expectations she could never meet. But standing here, feeling the warmth of Ethan's hands through the fabric of her dress, seeing the earnest concern in his eyes as he looked up at her towering frame, without flinching, she felt something shift inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she could trust this lonely rancher. Just a little. Just enough. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's expression softened. "Because everyone deserves kindness, especially people who've forgotten what it feels like." He released her waist and stepped back, giving her space. "Go on now. Change into something comfortable. I'll get the salve ready." Lydia moved toward the bedroom on shaking legs, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Behind the closed door, she leaned against the rough wood and tried to steady her breathing. This was insane. She'd known this man for less than an hour, and she was about to let him touch her in the most intimate ways. But the burning, the itching, it was unbearable. And something in his eyes, something in the gentle way he'd held her waist, told her she could trust him. At least with this, at least for now. The cotton nightdress was soft and cool against her inflamed skin when she finally put it on. Just removing the corset and the wool undergarments brought some relief, but not enough. The damage was already done. She looked at herself in the small mirror above the dresser, her dark hair falling loose around her shoulders. Her face pale except for 2 spots of color high on her cheeks, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and something else. Hope, maybe. The dangerous kind. When Lydia emerged from the bedroom, Ethan was sitting in a wooden chair he'd positioned near the fireplace, the ceramic jar of salve open on the small table beside him. The late afternoon light had deepened to amber, casting everything in warm gold. He looked up as she entered, and for a moment neither of them spoke. She stood there in the simple white nightdress, her height even more pronounced without the bulk of her traveling clothes, her long dark hair cascading over her shoulders like a waterfall. She looked vulnerable and magnificent all at once, and Ethan felt his breath catch in his throat. "Come here," he said gently, gesturing to the space in front of his chair. "We'll start with your back." Lydia moved forward slowly, each step deliberate, and Ethan could see she was trembling. Not from cold, the ranch house was warm from the afternoon sun, but from the vulnerability of the moment. When she stopped in front of him, he had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. The height difference was dramatic, almost comical, but Ethan didn't feel diminished by it. If anything, he felt protective. This woman who could physically overpower him with ease was shaking like a leaf, terrified of being touched. "Turn around," he instructed softly, "and tell me where it hurts worst." Lydia turned, presenting her back to him, and Ethan could see her shoulders were rigid with tension. "My lower back," she said, her voice tight. It's the worst there, and down my legs, behind my knees, and—" She couldn't finish, the embarrassment too much. "Your inner thighs," Ethan supplied matter-of-factly, keeping his tone clinical. "The friction points, That makes sense given the constant movement of the stagecoach. He stood, moving closer, and placed one hand lightly on her shoulder. She jumped at the contact. "Lydia, I need you to breathe. I'm going to lift the back of your nightdress just to your waist so I can see the damage. Is that all right?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. Ethan lifted the cotton fabric slowly, respectfully, and what he saw made him wince. The skin across her lower back was angry red, inflamed and irritated. In some places it looked almost raw, as if she'd been whipped. "Oh, Lydia," he said softly. "You've been carrying this pain for days." "There was nowhere private on the stage," she whispered. "Two other passengers, both men. I just had to endure it." "You shouldn't have had to endure anything," Ethan said firmly. He dipped his fingers into the salve, the scent of calendula and chamomile filling the air. "This is going to sting at first, but then it'll start to cool the inflammation. Ready?" "Yes." The first touch of his fingers on her inflamed skin made Lydia gasp, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. It did sting, sharp and sudden, but Ethan's touch was so gentle, so careful, that the sting quickly gave way to something else. A cooling sensation, a soothing relief. His hands moved across her lower back in slow, deliberate strokes, spreading the salve evenly, covering every inch of irritated skin. His fingers were calloused from years of ranch work, rough and work-worn, but they moved with such tenderness that Lydia felt tears spring to her eyes. No one had ever touched her like this, with care, with gentleness. As if her body was something precious rather than something too big, too much, too wrong. "How does it feel?" Ethan asked after a moment, his hands still moving in those slow, soothing circles. "It stings less now," Lydia managed. "It's cooling. It's helping." "Good." His hands moved lower, toward the base of her spine, and Lydia felt her breath hitch. "The salve needs to be massaged in gently to help it absorb. I'm going to apply a bit of pressure. Tell me if it's too much." It wasn't too much. If anything, the gentle massage was releasing tension Lydia hadn't even realized she was carrying. Her shoulders began to relax, her breathing deepened, and for the first time in 3 days, the burning pain started to truly ease. But something else was happening too, something she hadn't expected. With each careful touch of Ethan's hands, with each moment of relief he provided, Lydia felt something warm and unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Gratitude, yes, but more than that. Connection. Trust. The beginnings of something that terrified her. "You said it goes down your legs too," Ethan said quietly. "Behind your knees." "Yes," Lydia breathed. "All right. I'm going to lower the nightdress and work on your legs. Sit on the edge of the table here. That way you're higher up and I can reach without you having to stand for so long." Lydia moved to the sturdy wooden table, settling on its edge, and Ethan knelt before her. The position put them at a more equal height, though she was still taller. He looked up at her, his hazel eyes meeting her blue ones, and said, "You're doing great, Lydia. I know this isn't easy." "You're making it easier," she whispered. Ethan smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. Then he turned his attention to her legs, gently lifting the hem of the nightdress to expose her calves. The skin behind her knees was just as inflamed as her back, and he applied the salve with the same careful attention, the same gentle pressure. Lydia watched him work, mesmerized by the concentration on his face, the way his brow furrowed slightly as he made sure to cover every bit of irritated skin. "You have strong legs," Ethan observed, his voice quiet and conversational. "From walking, I'd guess, carrying heavy things." "I worked in a lumber mill back in Minnesota," Lydia said, surprised to find herself volunteering information. "After my father died, and left us with nothing. They needed someone who could lift heavy loads. My height, it was actually useful there. I bet it was. Ethan's hands moved higher, to her thighs, and Lydia felt her muscles tense automatically. Almost done, he murmured. Just the inner thighs now. I'll be as quick as I can. This was the most intimate part, the part Lydia had been dreading. But Ethan's touch remained clinical, professional, his movements efficient as he applied the salve to the raw, burning skin of her inner thighs. He didn't linger, didn't make it anything more than medical care, and somehow that very restraint, that respectfulness, touched Lydia more deeply than anything else could have. When he finally finished and lowered her nightdress, stepping back to give her space, Lydia found she couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of something else entirely. Relief, yes, but also the overwhelming emotion of being cared for, of being treated with gentleness when she'd expected rejection or disgust or mockery. "Did I hurt you?" Ethan asked immediately, concern flooding his features. "No," Lydia managed, her voice breaking. "No, you didn't hurt me. You—" She couldn't finish, the emotions too big for words. Ethan seemed to understand. He moved to the kitchen, dampened a cloth with water from the pitcher, and brought it to her. "Here," he said gently. "For your face." Lydia took the cloth with shaking hands and pressed it to her cheeks, trying to compose herself. But the tears kept coming, and finally she just gave up, trying to stop them. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know why I'm crying." "I do," Ethan said quietly. He pulled up a chair and sat facing her, close but not crowding. "You're crying because someone just treated you with kindness, and you're not used to it. You're crying because for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, someone looked at you and didn't see something wrong. They just saw someone who needed help." His words broke something open in Lydia's chest. "How do you know?" she asked. "How do you know what it's been like?" "Because I've seen that look before," Ethan said. "My wife, Sarah, she couldn't have children. Everywhere we went, people looked at her with pity or judgment. They told her she was failing as a woman, that she was less than, that she was broken. I watched her shrink under that weight, watched her start to believe it." His voice grew rough. "And I see that same weight on you, Lydia. That same belief that you're somehow wrong just for being who you are." Lydia stared at him, this man she'd known for barely an hour, who somehow saw straight through to the core of her. "I've been told my whole life that I'm too much," she whispered. "Too tall, too big, too strong. That no man would ever want someone like me. That I should be grateful for whatever scraps of affection I could get." "Then you've been lied to your whole life," Ethan said firmly. "Because there's nothing wrong with being tall or strong. There's nothing wrong with taking up space in the world. And any man who can't see the beauty in a woman who stands on her own 2 feet, who can work and build and survive, that man's a fool." Something in Lydia's chest felt like it was expanding. Like she'd been living in a too small room her whole life, and someone had just blown out the walls. "You really believe that?" she said, not a question but a statement of wonder. "I do," Ethan confirmed, "and I'll keep telling you until you believe it too." The evening had settled over the ranch like a warm blanket, the sky outside turning shades of purple and deep blue. Lydia had insisted on helping with supper, despite Ethan's protests, and now they sat at his small kitchen table, eating beef stew and cornbread in a silence that felt oddly comfortable. The salve had worked wonders. The burning had reduced to a mild warmth, the itching almost completely gone. But something else had taken its place, something far more dangerous. Every time Lydia looked at Ethan across the table, she felt that strange flutter in her chest. Every time their eyes met, she remembered the gentleness of his hands on her skin. "Tell me about your family," Ethan said, breaking the silence. Your life before you came here. Lydia set down her spoon, considering how much to share. But something about this man, this lonely rancher who'd shown her more kindness in one afternoon than she'd experienced in years, made her want to be honest. My father was a blacksmith in Norway, she began. A big man, strong as an ox. He loved that I inherited his size. He used to say I was his greatest creation. Her voice softened with memory. When I was 12, my mother died. It was just Papa and me after that. He taught me the forge, taught me to work metal and wood. He never made me feel like I was wrong for being tall. He sounds like a good man, Ethan said. He was, but when I was 16, he decided we should come to America. He'd heard there was opportunity here, land and work and a fresh start. We settled in Minnesota, and for a while it was good. Papa found work, I found work. But then, Lydia's throat tightened. 3 years ago, there was an accident at the mill. A support beam fell. Papa pushed me out of the way, but She couldn't finish. Ethan reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The gesture was simple but profound. I'm sorry, he said. Losing a parent, especially one who saw you for who you really are, that's a grief that doesn't fade. No, Lydia agreed. It doesn't. She looked down at his hand covering hers, so much smaller but somehow making her feel protected rather than diminished. After Papa died, everything fell apart. The mill kept me on, but the other workers, they started treating me differently. The men would make comments, crude suggestions. They thought because I was big and alone, I should be grateful for their attention. And the women, she laughed bitterly. The women were worse. They looked at me like I was stealing their husbands just by existing. So you became a mail-order bride, Ethan said, understanding dawning. My younger sister needed medicine. My mother's sister needed a roof over her head. I had no money, no prospects, and every day I stayed there, things got worse. Lydia met his eyes. When I saw the advertisement for a rancher in Montana seeking a wife, I thought, at least it's escape. At least it's survival. I didn't expect. She trailed off. Didn't expect what? Ethan prompted gently. Didn't expect someone who would kneel before me to ease my pain, Lydia whispered. Didn't expect someone who would look at me like I'm not a burden. Her voice dropped even lower. Didn't expect to feel this. Feel what? Ethan asked, though something in his eyes said he already knew. Like I'm falling, Lydia breathed. After just hours, like every gentle touch of your hands didn't just heal my skin, it healed something deeper, something I didn't even know was broken. She pulled her hand back, fear suddenly flooding through her. That's crazy, isn't it? To feel this way so fast. You must think I think you're someone who's been starving, Ethan interrupted. And when you've been starving long enough, you recognize nourishment when you finally find it. He stood, moving around the table until he was standing beside her chair. Lydia, look at me. She did, tilting her head up to meet his gaze, and what she saw there made her breath stop. His eyes held the same wonder, the same fear, the same impossible hope that she felt. I'm falling too, Ethan said quietly. I thought that part of me died with Sarah. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life going through motions, working the ranch, existing but not living. But then you stepped off that stagecoach, and something in me woke up. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hand. His palm was rough, but warm against her cheek. When I touched you today, trying to help with your pain, I felt alive again. I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was still something worth building. Someone worth knowing. Someone worth loving, Lydia finished, the word barely audible. Yes, Ethan said simply. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Lydia's heart hammered against her ribs as she stared up at Ethan, his hand still cupping her cheek with such tenderness it made her want to weep. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to trust that this is real, that you won't wake up tomorrow and realize you made a mistake bringing me here." "Then I'll remind you," Ethan said firmly. "Every single day if I have to. I'll remind you with words and actions and every touch until you believe it." He paused, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. "Lydia Morrison, you're not a mistake. You are not too much. You are exactly what I need, exactly what this ranch needs, exactly what my heart needs even though I didn't know it until today." A tear slipped down Lydia's cheek, catching on his thumb. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know what love looks like," Ethan said. "I loved Sarah for 10 years, through sickness and health, through joy and sorrow. I know love doesn't fade just because someone gets used to someone else. It grows deeper. And I know that what I'm feeling right now, after just hours with you, is the beginning of something real." He leaned closer, and Lydia's breath caught. "I want to kiss you. May I?" Lydia's answer was to lean down, closing the distance between them. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle and sweet and filled with promise. A kiss between two wounded people who'd found, against all impossible odds, exactly what they needed in each other. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. "Thank you," Lydia whispered against his lips. "For what?" "For making it stop. Not just the itching, but the loneliness, the feeling that I was wrong, that I was too much for anyone to love. You made all of that stop with every gentle touch." She pulled back slightly to look at him fully. "Ethan Cole, I think I'm going to love being married to you." "I know I'm going to love being married to you," Ethan replied. He stepped back, his hand sliding from her face down to catch her hand. "Now you need rest. Tomorrow we start building our life together. But tonight, you sleep. And if the irritation comes back, you wake me. No suffering in silence anymore. Understood?" "Understood," Lydia agreed. As she stood, her height once again towering over him, Ethan looked up at her with such warmth that she felt it all the way to her bones. "Good night, Lydia. Sleep well." "Good night, Ethan." That night, lying in the bed that would become hers, Lydia touched her lips where Ethan had kissed her. The itching was gone, replaced by the cooling salve that continued to work its magic. But more than that, the ache in her heart, the one she'd carried for so long she'd forgotten it was there, had begun to ease too. For the first time in years, Lydia Morrison felt something she'd thought lost forever. She felt hope. Hope that maybe she'd found her place in the world. Hope that maybe someone could love her exactly as she was. Hope that this lonely rancher's gentle touches were just the beginning of something beautiful. And in the loft above, Ethan Cole lay awake, thinking of the giant woman sleeping below, and felt that same hope stirring in his chest. Tomorrow they would start fresh. Tomorrow they would begin building a life together. But tonight, both of them rested easier, knowing they were no longer alone. The giant mail-order bride had begged him to make it stop. And what the lonely rancher did, slowly had made her fall in love with every touch. But the truth was simpler and more profound than either of them had expected. They had saved each other. So what did you think of Ethan and Lydia's story? Have you ever met someone who made you feel seen and valued when everyone else made you feel invisible? Drop a comment below and tell us what time it is, where you're watching from, and what country you're in. We love hearing from our global family. And here's a question for you. Do you think love can really happen this fast, or does Lydia need to be more careful with her heart? Let us know your thoughts. If this story touched your heart, smash that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another beautiful love story. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're exactly right just as they are.